library was unusually quiet. Sunlight spilling in through tall windows, dust motes floating lazily in the air. One stood near the aisle with her friends, her arms full of books as she chatted softly with them. As one of her friends cracked a silly joke while laughed, her hand lifting to tie her hair into a loose ponytail. Strands slipped from behind her ear as she tugged at the ribbon, her movements graceful in their simplicity. Across the room, Thames paused mid-step. His gaze fell on her, the curve of her lips as laughter spilled out the delicate way she gathered her hair. A small, involuntary smile tugged at his lips as he thought, how can she look so delicate even in the simplest things? Her laughter hit his chest like a wave, warm and familiar, and something tightened painfully inside him. That laugh, it feels like home. But the warmth drained from his face when he caught the low whispers of two boys nearby. She's really pretty, isn't she? Yeah, every guy has eyes on her. Wonder why no one's approached her yet. If I got the chance, I would definitely ask her out. Each word darkened his expression further, his jaw clenching as a storm brewed in his chest. His gaze snapped back to wine. Her innocence, her unawareness, the way she tiptoed now, trying to reach a book just out of her grasp. Without thinking, Thames strode forward. Her friends had wandered to other shelves, leaving her alone. She stretched upward, her fingertips barely brushing the spine of the book she wanted. Suddenly, a shadow loomed behind her. A long arm reached over her shoulder, plucking the book from the shelf with ease. One blinked in surprise and turned, but instead of seeing who it was, her forehead bumped firmly against a broad muscular chest. Her breath hissed, his scent clean and faintly woody enveloped her senses. Her cheeks burned as she instantly lowered her head, too flustered to meet his eyes. Tim, however, stared down at her with a gleam of amusement, his own heartbeat hammering in his ears. Leaning just slightly closer, his voice dropped low, teasing in warmth. Still as stubborn as ever, Wine. You'd rather struggle than ask for help. Her heart flipped violently at his voice, the timbre of it deeper than before, wrapping around her like velvet. She quickly muttered, almost breathless, thanks. She reached out to take the book, but he smoothly pulled it out of reach, the corner of his lips tugging upward. Wine's face cooled instantly. She narrowed her eyes, her tone bitter. You don't need to tease me, Tim. You're just my late mother's friend, son, not my friend. His playful expression faltered, his brows knitting together. What happened, Wine? I used to tease you in childhood too. She gave a soft British nod, stepping back. I'm not the little girl anymore. Please, stay away from me. Snatching the book from his hand, she turned quickly, walking down the aisle with her head lowered. Her voice was barely a whisper to herself. You only think of me as the little girl from the past. What about our engagement thing? You have already forgotten it. Tim stood frozen in his place. His breath stilled. All he could do was watch the back of her retreating figure, her shoulders stiff as if she carried the whole weight of the world. Biting his lip, he ran a frustrated hand through his hair, his chest aching. His eyes softened with something deeper, longing, regret, fierce possession. In a low murmur meant for no one but himself, he whispered, So you don't remember our engagement, Wine? That's why you have been avoiding me all these years. His hand clenched by his side, his voice dropping into a foe. No matter how much you push me away, I won't let you go. You have been mine since the day you were born. And as he stood there in the silence of the library aisle, his gaze fixed on where she disappeared, the storm in his chest only grew stronger because Wine wasn't just a memory of childhood. She was his present, his future, his everything. Landscape. Theo never stopped finding ways to cross paths with Wine. Sometimes he would deliberately take longer routes just to walk past her department, pretending to check his phone or greet someone, but really just to catch a glimpse of her. Other times he would show up at the campus cafe, where she was with her friends standing tall and unbothered, sliding his tray on her table with casual ease. Mom keeps asking about you. She says it's been too long since she last saw you, he said softly. Wine forced a smile and politely said, Please tell Mrs. Kim I'll visit soon. I have just been busy. He would nod, but disappointment always flickered in his eyes, until one day his phone buzzed. It was Mrs. Kim. Tim passed the phone to Wine. I know she's there with you. Tim glanced at Wine and said, Mom wants to talk to you. Wine blinked at him in shock, but he gave a guilty boyish smile before sliding the phone across the table. She hesitantly pressed it to her ear. Auntie, it's been a while. Wine, come visit me for lunch this weekend. I miss you, darling. Don't say no. Mrs. Kim's warm voice echoed. Wine had no choice but to agree. That weekend she visited their house. Tim couldn't hide the way his eyes followed her as she entered, though he tried to mask it with calm politeness. She too avoided looking at him directly, though her gaze kept drifting in his direction. Lunch was warm, filled with Mrs. Kim's laughter and affectionate talk about Wine's late mother, the old days when their families were inseparable. But not once did the subject of her engagement with him come up. Wine smiled and answered politely, but her heart ached the entire time. She had hoped just once they would acknowledge it. When she returned home, her father, Mr. Hen, asked quietly, Did they mention marriage with him? Wine shook her head, eyes glistening, and whispered, No, not once. Mr. Hen sighed heavily, pulling her into his arms. Let go of the past, my child. They don't seem to want you. My friend wants to introduce his son to you, Luke. He's a fine young man. You already know him. Wine repeated faintly as if testing the name. Luke. Mr. Hen nodded, brushing her hair back. Think about it. I don't trust my health, Wine. I need to see you settled. She sighed softly, resting her forehead on his chest. I need to think, Dad. But deep inside, both of them already knew she couldn't let go of Theon. A few days later, Theon was spotted with the popular girl Abby during a campus event. Photos spread online captioned with heart emojis. Students whispered everywhere, they're perfect together. Such a handsome pair. Wine's chest cracked painfully. From that day, she stopped making eye contact with him. No smiles, no walking near his path. She treated him as though he didn't even exist. Theon noticed instantly. He tried to approach her to call out her name, but she turned away every time. One night, he slammed his phone in frustration and muttered, Why is she hiding from me? Did she misunderstand God? Wine, look at me once. 2 days later, rain poured heavily as Wine stood outside the university gates, hugging her books close. She hadn't brought an umbrella. As shadows stretched over her, she turned and saw Theon standing tall, holding out his umbrella. His hair was damp, his jaw tight, but his eyes softened the moment they met hers. I don't mind getting wet. You shouldn't, he said quietly. Her heart thudded painfully. She parted her lips to speak, but before she could, a sleek black car stopped at the curb. Bill came out with a warm smile. Wine, your dad sent me to pick you up. She froze, glancing instinctively at Theon, whose expression darkened instantly, brows furrowed. Wine hesitated, then nodded politely, stepping toward the car. As she slid in, he bent close enough for only her to hear. Your fiancé looks scary. Will he beat me up for picking his fiancée? He whispered playfully. Wine let out a soft, reluctant chuckle, shaking her head. The sun pierced Theon's chest like a knife. Luke sat in the car as the car drove off under Theon's nose. Theon's grip on the umbrella tightened until his knuckles turned white, his jaw clenched, fury simmering in his veins. He muttered a curse under his breath, throwing the umbrella aside carelessly into the ring, and muttered darkly, Who the hell was that to take her like this? Running a frustrated hand through his drenched hair, he growled under his breath, his voice trembling with possessive resolve. Enough, I'll talk to Mom today. She must speak to Mr. Han about our wedding. I won't let her slip away. Few days later. It had been 3 days Wine hadn't attended a single lecture. 3 days Tim hadn't caught even a glimpse of her. His chest burned with impatience, worry clawing at his insides until he slammed his phone down on the table. Mom, I can't wait anymore. I don't care if Uncle hesitates. Wine is mine. I'll marry her even tomorrow if I have to. His voice was rough. Mrs. Kim smiled knowingly at her son's torment, brushing her hand against his arm. Patience, Tim, but perhaps it's time we visit them. Now Tim arrived at Wine's house with his parents and siblings, but instead of the warm reunion he had imagined, they were struck with shock. Mr. Hen lay on the bed, weak but alive, having suffered a minor heart attack, and Wine, Tim's heart wrenched. She sat at his bedside, hair tied in a messy bun, her face pale, her eyes weary but endlessly worried. She looked fragile, like she had been holding the entire world on her own shoulders. His desperate eyes never left her, even as Mr. Kim asked gently about Mr. Hen's condition. Wine, why didn't you tell us? We don't have to carry everything alone, Mrs. Kim said worriedly with a touch of scolding. Wine lowered her head silently, fingers fidgeting with her sleeves. Tim stepped forward, his voice soft but weak with concern. She's right. You shouldn't keep this to yourself, he murmured. Wine's eyes welled instantly at his softness. She quickly looked away, biting her lip to keep from breaking. Just then Mr. Hen spoke faintly from the bed. Luke and his family never once left us alone these days. Tim's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. The muscle in his cheek twitched, and almost as if summoned by the words, Luke walked into the room, calling out warmly, Wine, your uncle and his family are here. He halted mid-step, eyes widening when he saw Tim's family. Wine immediately stood. I'll bring them in, she said hurriedly. Luke nodded and followed her out. Moments later, her uncle and his family entered, while Tim sat, face unreadable but power radiating from him, his eyes darkening by the second. Luke and Wine still hadn't returned. Then he heard Wine's uncle chuckle to Mr. Hen. So, how did the date go with Luke? Promising, I hope. Tim's patience snapped. He rose abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. His parents exchanged a subtle glance, saying nothing, as if silently agreeing to let him handle this. Tim stalked out, his steps heavy, his breath raised with restrained fury. He followed the sound of Luke's voice until he reached the kitchen. There Luke stood by the counter trying to make Mom laugh, and she did. A soft, tired laugh slipped past her lips. That sound meant for him tore Tim apart. He clenched his jaw and barged in. The door banged against the wall. Both of them still instantly. Wine, whipping her head around. Tim's dark gaze locked on her. He stood forward, grabbing her arm firmly but not harshly. We need to talk. His voice was dangerously low. The tone made the air in the room heavy. Luke's eyes widened. He quickly cleared his throat and excused himself. I'll give you 2 a moment. The door clicked shut behind him. Wine frowned, tugging her arm. Leave my hand, she said sharply. Tim gritted his teeth, stepping closer, and muttered darkly, Why are you frowning, Wine? Weren't you too happy with Luke just now? Who is he to you? He caged her against the counter, his broad shoulders blocking every escape. She showed his chest, but he didn't budge an inch. Her voice came out in a shaky whisper. He's my father's friend's son. He let out a low, humorless chuckle. He leaned in his breath, brushing her hair, his tone mockingly soft. Then why did you go on a date with him? Wine blinked from her brows. What? He sighed heavily, his hand slipping around her waist, pulling her flesh against his chest. The other day in university. His voice was harsh. Her face flamed red, heart pounding as she squirmed nervously in his arms and stammered, "We weren't on a date, we were just discussing an internship." Relief flickered in his eyes, though his grip didn't ease. He tilted her chin up, forcing her eyes on his. "You are mine, wine. Since the day you were born, you were marked mine, no one else's. You can't go on a date with anyone, we are engaged." His voice was low and held raw possessiveness. Wine's breath caught. She had never seen this side of him, possessive, burning, unrestrained. Her lips trembled as the truth burst out of her. You or your family even remember that? Or am I just imagining it all these years? It died with my mother. Her voice broke. His expression crumbled. Shaking his head, he cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her damp lashes, and he whispered, "How could we forget? The only reason we stayed quiet was because your father was against it back then. He said you couldn't be married until you finished your studies. But I have been waiting, aching, dying to make you mine." Her tears slipped down as she whispered, "I thought you didn't mean anything anymore. I thought you didn't like me." Thames' arms crushed her into his chest, his voice trembling in her hair. "It meant everything. You mean everything." She smiled faintly against his chest, her tears soaking his shirt as she murmured, "That changed his mind after Mom's death. But the silence from your side killed my hope." He pulled away just enough to look at her, cupping her face, pressing his forehead to hers. "Silence, Wine, I have fallen for you every single time I see you. Every smile, every stubborn walk away, every laugh you hide from me. Don't you dare avoid me again." He kissed her forehead, lingering, the spirit trembling. Wine melted, a shy smile spreading across her lips as she lowered her lashes. Then chuckled softly, brushing her hair back, and teased, "Why are you nervous?" She quickly brought her hand over his eyes, flustered. "Why are you staring like that?" He caught her hand, kissing her palm with aching tenderness, and smiled against her skin. "Because you're looking mine." Her cheeks burned as she covered her face, while he only laughed quietly, pulling her into his chest again. Just then, Thames' younger brother and sister peeked in. They froze at the sight, then immediately burst into mischievous grins. Taryn said in a sing-song, "Brother, should we tell them?" His brother said, "Teased, they're already talking about the wedding in the living room." One jolted back, face crimson. I should go check on Dad." She practically ran out, desperate for escape. Then shot his siblings a glare, though his lips curved upward. He mock-scolded them. "Yeah, don't tease her like that." Taryn giggled, "But you look so happy, brother." He ruffled their hair with a sigh, but the smile on his face was unstoppable. Later, all the while, his gaze never left Wine, and every time he stared too long, her face flushed. When he caught Wine alone again, he brushed her hand gently, voice dropping low. "About Abby, those photos, they were nothing. Someone spread the rumor, but I have already taken care of it. I have never wanted anyone but you, Wine." Her heart throbbed. She blinked up at him, lips parting, but before she could answer, he leaned down, brushing his nose against her temple, whispering, "Only you."